But let's close out the podcast moving. We talked about Zach. We talked about Kobe. Now we're going to talk about someone who was injured for most of last year, and that's Lauri Markkanen. Before we get into it, though, make sure I'll pitch the Twitters. At Ricky Whitmer, at Dave _don't_ tweet.
Just pitch something.
At Most
really
Valuable
great
Pod.
pitch, Ricky.
And
You're selling me on it.
what
I would totally follow my Twitter.
This kid doesn't even know what he was trying to sell me.
well, the thing that
That's
I
like, it's like, hey man, would you like to buy this cord?
well, don't unplug it. Your computer will go off.
Oh.
But
That's not
it's-
how
that's your
laptops
bad.
work.
is it still at Schwarbo?
No, it's at Sean_W_Anderson.
Okay.
All professional now.
Because Dave and I saw it changed. Then it was like, wait, it's back. I saw later that night, I'm like, wait, it's back to Schwarbo.
I had a panic attack because I was doing the McNeil and Parkin show.
Mm-hmm.
Dan McNeil was out. He was in Canada fishing. And Nick Shipkowski was like, yeah, why are you at Schwarbo if you're a White Sox fan? Because he thought I was a Cubs fan. I was like, I can't have people thinking I'm a Cubs fan because I am a White Sox fan. So then I was going to go change it, and I was going to go change it to S.E. Anderson 670. I was like, ooh, and then I got some advice from Joe Ostrowski.
Because it looked like Sean Dearson.
Yeah, it was that, but then it was also, he was like, I was iffy on putting the 670 thing in there because now I change it, but now I'm verified, so I can't. So I don't think I'll ever be verified, but if I am, I do want something that can travel outside of, if I ever leave 670.
Does the verified thing really matter?
I think it does.
Yeah,
The check mark
If
adds.
I did verified, I think I'd throw a party.
Okay.
That'd be sweet.
I'd show up for that
But
party.
yeah, then I went back to Schwarbo because
Could you
it
imagine
felt comfortable.
if he could hold that over our heads that he's verified and we're not?
Dave's
Dave's like,
Dave's
I
Twitter.
wouldn't care.
Yeah.
But with that too, and then I was like, oh, I'll keep Schwarbo, and then I tried to use just Sean or Sean Anderson, but all variations of that were taken. So it was a horrible week for me just trying to figure out a username. So my new @ is at Sean_W @_Anderson. I can't even say it. So
Scene.
Yeah. So I told
regretting
Dave
it.
when Dave was like, "Oh, Sean changed his Twitter." I was like, "Great! I now have to change all Sean's graphics
There you go.
because all of your graphics for us say Schwarbo
Well,
just leave it. I don't
at
care.
Schwarbo."
Doesn't matter.
if you want to hear about Lauri Markkanen, thanks for waiting 3 minutes.
Hey, well, and Sean, you're actually the one that proposed this one because when we were coming up with topics, I was like, "Oh, we'll talk Bulls," and then there's the Cubs added 2 more names to their list of people that, let's be honest, probably won't get the job. But I'm like, "Oh, it's 2 new people that are in the hunt," and you threw out, "Well, no, let's talk all Bulls," and you want to talk about Lauri Markkanen and what's his ceiling. So the thing I'm just going to throw it to you first, hoping that you got something because you threw out the topic. What do you think is Lauri Markkanen's ceiling, and basically, should we see that this year? Is it like, hey, you know what, we're not going to see this for yet another few years?
Yeah,
What were your thought process with this?
Well, we're definitely far away from his ceiling. I think the biggest reason why is because, he's only 22 years old, and he hasn't been healthy in those first 2 years. So I don't think we're near his ceiling. We were talking, too, about what prime starts to kick in. Typically, it was 26 to 30, right, was the idea. But I think now that's moved up a bit just because guys are coming into the league a little bit younger and guys are more physically developed, I think, just with advanced training. So I think that prime could really start around 24. I don't think he's near his prime. I don't think he's near his ceiling. So I wouldn't say he's close to that. This year isn't going to be a sign of his true ceiling. It will be a sign, hopefully, for Bulls fans and Markkanen himself for a step forward. The thing that I have loved about him is that he's been really consistent throughout his first 2 years. He was pretty much a 43% shooter from the field his rookie year. He was a 36% shooter from 3 his rookie and sophomore year. He grew a little bit from the free throw line, 84% to 87%. But he's been pretty consistent, and he's just taken steps further when getting more minutes. So that stuff is obviously good to see. And if he sticks around a 43% shooter and a 36% shooter from 3, that'd be pretty sweet for, I think, Bulls fans. It's a little bit rough when you have a 7-footer not shooting near 50% from the field, and that's the one thing that's not going to make him Dirk. Dirk was an all-around offensive weapon. Dirk isn't most famous for his three-point shooting. Dirk is most famous for that fadeaway turnaround jumper. That is what is iconic. That's what's embroidered into the American Airlines Arena in Dallas now is that turnaround jumper. So that's what Dirk made his money doing, was being a big man that could stretch the floor. Markkanen is mainly a outside shooter. That's where he's going to make the majority of his buckets. Last year he took 15 shots, and six of those were threes last year. So I mean that's pretty much like a forward or a guard like split when it comes to your actual shooting. So Markkanen is a pretty unique player when it comes to his ability offensively. I think he's held back a little bit defensively, which isn't going to make him like a Kristaps. So I think that his ceiling is definitely lower than Dirk and Kristaps Porzingis. I think he's a very good offensive weapon. And when you put him into that range, it's tough then to find a spot for him because he's not as athletic as Cat. And I think maybe if he does become this uber efficient player, then maybe he gets to that Cat level of being a 7-footer that can shoot from the outside and then also be a scorer from all around. But he's really not that much of a good all-around scorer. He is just a very good outside scorer. So I think Markkanen's probably best ability might be like a souped-up Channing Frye. And I think that might be a little bit of a bad thing to hear, but Channing Frye was a very good player, just not as athletic. So I think that if you look at Markkanen, I think that he could be a more athletic Channing Frye.
I want to say, wasn't that one of the bad comps from draft night on him?
Yeah, Channing Frye.
Yeah.
I got one for you. What about? And I know you say like, well, he's probably not going to score a ton of points. What about like a K Love? And I'm not talking about fat K Love. I'm talking about K Love, like what he's been
current K Love
for the Cavaliers. Because like you look at it,
that might be better than that might be better than souped up Channing Frye.
He's a guy where it's like in Cleveland, 16 to 19 points per game. He still gives you that at least 9 rebounds per game, which Lowry's been giving us. It's the 3-point percentage where early on in his career, he didn't shoot that well. He also had that one of the last years in Minnesota where he only shot 21%. But since coming over to the Cavs, he's been a 36% to that uber ultra year where he had the 41% off of about 5.5 attempts a game in 2017, 2018. I look at that and like that's what I think Lowry is. Where does Lowry need to be our number 2? Because Zach's our 1. Like he's the
that is
star
clear
of the
in a
team.
way. Yep.
Lauri Markkanen doesn't need to be the second biggest star on this team. He can be the 3 of our big 3 that we're trying to build and draft or sign because or trade for, because that's what Zach was. Someone else can come in. If Kobe White wants to develop into that too, if Otto Porter's going to stay and be that too, like Lauri Markkanen doesn't need to be the next best star behind Zach for us to be successful.
I just don't know if he is the physical player that Kevin Love is.
But as time's gone on,
a better comp.
that version of Kevin Love is less physical.
That's a better comp than Channing Frye. So I'll at least
admit
give
to
you
that. Yeah.
But Kevin Love, he's not as physical as he was. Yes, he's not like a 2020.
Yeah, he transitioned from being a big man on the low block.
But he was still a very good rebounder.
Yeah, he's one of the best rebounders in the NBA.
When he was with the Cavs,
No,
and
even
Markkanen
now.
isn't that. I mean, Kevin Love still in those Cleveland days was grabbing around 2 offensive boards a game, and Markkanen isn't in that area.
Yep.
So maybe a more timid Kevin Love. Like it's weird to find him a comp because he is a very unique
So you draw
player.
the triangle out of Kevin Love, Ryan Anderson, and Andrea Bargnani.
I mean, Markkanen last year though only had about 1.5 offensive boards. So I mean,
that's a big difference.
No, but I mean rookie
per game,
year.
yeah.
But like, let's see this third year. How he does he have the same amount? Does he take an uptick in?
Well, he hasn't
offensive rebounds?
upticked anywhere is the problem.
No, it was.
and he's been stuck in the mud.
1.4. So
That's what I'm saying. Like,
more.
But
He was also
statistically,
injured the second year. He played less games
yeah, he played 52 games
compared
this
to
year.
68.
Yeah, so like both years didn't get full runs.
Yeah.
So one problem. 2, statistically, yes, he added a couple more points a game, but it's just a matter of like, all right, how much more can you grow? I get it. You're young. You're athletic for a 7-footer. He can stretch the floor, but I wasn't joking with that like triangle of player comps. Like he falls somewhere in that range. And yes, that's not an insult because it's like prime Ryan Anderson was shooting incredibly well. He was spacing the floor for one of the best teams in the regular season of all time.
Yeah.
And you look at what Bargnani did at his peak. you look at what Kevin Love did on those Cleveland teams. Like, he is a floor spacer. He's someone who can still get rebounds just by the nature of being 7 feet tall, or right around there. And he is someone who can play physical when you need him to. He's not as bad defensively as Ryan Anderson is, but he's also not as good defensively as Kevin Love was.
Yeah. And I think one thing, too, is just to clarify that point, too, it's tough to find totals just because Kevin Love's been injured so much. But if you look for per 100 possessions, comparing Markkanen's first 2 seasons to Kevin Love's seasons in Cleveland, you look at the per 100 possessions when it comes to offensive rebounding, and Kevin Love has been beat by like 1.2 offensive rebounds per 100 possessions. So, I mean, rebounding-wise, it's not really close when you compare Kevin Love and Markkanen. I do like you bringing in the comp triangle. The Dime Drop, a great channel.
I love that.
YouTube channel. I think he's now with the Ringer, so shout out to J. Kyle Mann. But he does a comp cloud, and I think that Bargnani would definitely be in there. I think Kevin Love would definitely be in there. I think Channing Frye would definitely be in there as well. I think.
Come on, give Ryan Anderson just.
Oh, Ryan.
I'm
Anderson
right.
Too.
Yeah, okay.
Ryan Anderson too. I thought you said Ryan Anderson instead of Channing Frye, so that's why I threw him in there. But yeah, no, I think that Markkanen's a unique player. But it's just like his ceiling is limited by what he can do athletically. And that's the reason why he dropped initially in the draft, was that people didn't think he was that athletic enough. People thought he was strictly just a shooter. And then the shooting started to go down in Arizona. So not only was he, the athleticism didn't show there, but also we were like, oh, well, maybe he's not that consistent enough. And maybe that was just a hot streak. Clearly, that's not a hot streak, and he is a great shooter.
Bad coaching.
And he is a very good offensive player, 100%. It was just bad coaching by Sean Miller.
Yep.
We know that he is a very good offensive player, but I think his athleticism is what is going to limit him, and that's what limited Bargnani. That's what limited Ryan Anderson as well. I think that he's going to be at least long-term better, though, because Ryan Anderson and Bargnani weren't in this NBA. And Ryan Anderson's still kicking around for sure, but he wasn't prime, peak, 21 years old, 22, 23, 24 years old when he was in the height of the NBA,
numbers.
the peak of the NBA. Yeah. So that's the thing that Markkanen does have to his game and
he's
to his
already
career
there.
Is that he's in the modern NBA.
Well, yeah, I'm saying he's in the modern NBA, but he's also putting up very good numbers for being so young.
Yeah, I think you look at the numbers that he put up his rookie to sophomore year, and I was kind of showing it that there wasn't that much of a jump. You just started getting more minutes, and then you see just a natural jump in that. So I don't think he's ever going to skyrocket to like 24 points is what I'm thinking. So he is already there physically, and I think that his game really can't mature too much. Yes, maybe he'll be able to add a couple moves down low. Maybe he'll be able to put himself in better positions to rebound. Maybe he'll be able to work on his passing just a little bit. But I think all of his growth is going to be incremental. So I think we're kind of seeing near peak Lauri Markkanen right now. And that's why I think the triangle is interesting, because I don't think he could ever become the unicorn like Kristaps Porzingis can be, but I think he can stick around in the league longer than an Andrea Bargnani. I think he'd be more impactful than a Ryan Anderson. So that's, even if you want to throw in K-Love as well. I don't think he'll ever be as impactful as a K-Love, but I think he could be a third or second player on a championship team.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be the Bulls. Probably not going to be the Bulls, but I do think that he can be a part of a big three on a championship team.
Do you think he moves on after his contract's ended? Does he get traded later in his career and then becomes a champion?
I don't. I'm not saying he will become a champion.
No, but you said not for the Bulls. That's what I'm.
He doesn't think the Bulls are going to be a championship team.
I don't think
during his career.
I don't, because right now Kobe White is not going to. I don't think Kobe White's the number one. I don't think he'll ever. He has that type of ceiling. And then with
Zach is our one.
That's the thing. Zach isn't a number one that can win you a championship. So, I mean...
Back to the Jimmy Butler argument.
I don't want to...
I could kill that argument in a second. Jimmy Butler was a better player, and that's why Jimmy Butler was traded for Zach LaVine.
And Lauri Markkanen. And Chris Dunn.
Yeah, so there's a reason why Jimmy Butler was a better player when he left Chicago than Zach LaVine is right now. Jimmy Butler was a clear all-star because he was a two-way dynamite player, where Zach LaVine is a very good offensive player. But Zach LaVine isn't a number one that can win you a championship, and that's why I think that Lauri Markkanen won't be on a championship team, at least with the Bulls. I mean, maybe he wins a championship somewhere else, but I can't predict that. But if he does win a championship, I do think that he'd be the second or third best player because of what he can do offensively. I just think they'd be limited defensively.
I agree with you. I don't think he's going to be a true one, but where I disagree with you is physically, we've seen a massive growth from him. He's put on so much muscle in the last 2 years. If you look at him from the college to his offseason foes this year, which represent Duff Lundgren.
If you look at him from Dave bashing him in the NCAA tournament.
He looked awful, and I did that rightfully so.
You're 100% right with that. He's growing
He's
physically.
muscled up, so that the hope is that he will be able to extend or to bring his game into the low post again.
Yeah.
And we should hopefully see an uptick in that field goal percentage because he should be getting earlier looks where he can bully around people. In addition, he should also be contending for more rebounds.
At least watch, and you're right about that. And that's why I think there could be incremental
Like it
growth
looks like our
there.
training staff's taking the right direction with him at least. So that's why I'm still positive about I don't think he's I don't think he's close to his physical peak. Like he's in that range, but there's definitely still room for growth in those areas.
There's room for growth, but I think it's incremental growth. And I think I just think the thing that holds me back from him being, you could add that muscle, you could trim down, you could become thinner, you could be able to add more strength to move guys out and be a stronger guy boxing out players. But I think the thing that is holding me back is I don't know if he has that mentality to be very tough and be that gritty guy that you need to grab you boards and like K-Love was, because K-Love was just a fat dude that was going in there, and he was getting every single ball.
Yeah.
And I don't think Markkanen has that. I think Markkanen wants to be a finesse player, and that's why I think you see that with Dirk a little bit. Dirk was a very much a finesse player. Dirk wasn't a guy that he could get a little bit gritty. He would jaw a couple people up, but he was never like a Kristaps, where Kristaps was not afraid to block anybody at the rim. Kristaps was a mean motherfucker, still is. So I don't think he has that.
But do the Bulls know that? And that's why that's why they've drafted Wendell Carter. That's why they drafted Daniel Gafford, who can maybe fill in for that side of
But that
Lauri
doesn't
Markkanen.
change what Markkanen's ceiling is.
No, but
We're
saying
talking strictly Markkanen.
the thing that the reason why I'm getting into
play.
that might not be a bad thing is the Bulls have drafted for that to Wendell can play next to Lowry.
That's going to help the team.
Yeah.
We're talking strictly about Markkanen's ceiling.
Yeah, and I'm saying that his ceiling doesn't need to be that. Like he doesn't need to
focus on that because he
No.
can work better on his shot
I understand
or
that,
on
but that still
spacing.
holds back his ceiling.
Yeah, but I mean
That's my point.
To me, it doesn't like.
That's going to
it's
affect
not
the overall. That's going to
necessarily
affect the way he plays. That's going to affect his game style.
To me, that's
He's not going to be an
bringing
all-around
his
player
ceiling
because,
down.
Yes, it does.
It's putting him in a different room with a different ceiling, because you're going to look at not all ceilings are created equal. Lauri Markkanen's ceiling is not going to be the same as a guard ceiling because they're different players. A forward and a guard are going to be different, and that's what I'm like. But that's what I'm getting into.
You're telling me Carson Edwards' ceiling's different than Lauri Markkanen?
Exactly.
Thank you.
But
Sherlock?
what I'm getting to is
maybe put Carson Edwards on somebody else's shoulder.
Taco Falls.
There you go.
But I mean,
Too big. It's a 12-foot player.
what
right
I'm
there.
getting to is his ceiling. We're comparing him to these players because you're expecting that. If I'm not, there's a whole nother pool that you can compare
What
him
pool
to.
are you pulling from then? I think we
For
already
me,
have that pool.
For me,
That
I'm
pool
not
is
even worried about you're bringing up the offensive rebound numbers. With me, I'm not necessarily thinking about that. I'm thinking more of offensively and his 3-point percentage. I would love to see that go up.
But that's his 3-point percentage is absolutely fine where it is right now.
No, I mean but it could be better. If he was shooting
we talked about this last year. We talked about this in the last segment. There was 10
He's
players
above league average.
There was 10 players that shot 40% or more from three that were taking 5 a game. The fact that he's at 36% as a 7-footer, that is more than suffice for an
taking
offense.
6.5 a game.
Yeah, I mean that's golden for what you want. But we're putting him in that area. I was bringing up offensive rebounds because we're saying, his ceiling could be K-Love. Well, he can't be K-Love because K-Love had this aspect to his game. And that's why, I don't think Markkanen has that aspect to his game. And that's why they're bringing in Wendell Carter Jr. That's why they're bringing in Daniel Gafford. So that's limiting his ceiling to be Kevin Love. And that's why we need to bring in Andrea Bargnani, who wasn't as physical as a player as Kevin Love was. That's why we're bringing in Ryan Anderson because he was mainly an outside shooter that was really going to stick to the outside. So I think you can blend some of these guys' game, but we're blending it because his game is more watered down than what the ceiling is. So if you're saying the ceiling is Kevin Love, he cannot reach that ceiling because he is not as physical. And I think that is, yes, it could change a little bit and he could have more of a step up because he's adding muscle, because he's adding strength to his game. But I don't know if it's mentally there to be a physical killer. And then if we're bringing in Kristaps Porzingis, a guy that is very similar to him in his background, a large, 7-footer, a guy who's from an Eastern European country, one being from Finland, one being from Latvia, being this guy that comes in and is an outside shooter with this size, that makes these two players unique and fit in the same category. But the thing that separates Kristaps from Lauri Markkanen is Kristaps' athleticism and Kristaps' mean streak that I don't think that Lauri Markkanen has. And that's the thing that is going to limit his ceiling, and that's why they're bringing in players around him. It doesn't make him a worse player. It doesn't mean that he can't be a great player for what he is. He's going to be able to mold and find his own way in the NBA, but it does limit him for what he truly can be. And if Kevin Love wasn't a number one player on a championship team, that obviously means that Lauri Markkanen might be a 2, but at least is going to be a 3, and possibly a little bit lower down the totem pole, because I don't think he is that type of player that Kevin Love is. Same with Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps Porzingis can be the 2 on a championship team because of his physicality, because of his mean streak, because of his defensive ability. He is more of a two-way player than Lauri Markkanen is. So we're trying to figure out his ceiling. So you need to bring in those pools of players that play his same position, that have the same abilities that he does, but what limits him from being those types of players? And I think what I've seen for the first 2 years and his freshman year in college, I don't think the physicality side of his game is there mentally. I know as me, when I was growing up as a player, and obviously I'm nothing like these professional athletes are, and if I went up in a fight against Lauri Markkanen, he would kick my ass 100%.
Yeah.
But I always
He do
knew
one of
that-
those cute things where he puts his hand on your head and you're swinging that air.
I always knew that I was a player that, and a person that, whether it be football, basketball, baseball as well, I wanted to avoid being hit by the ball. I wanted to avoid being around people. I wanted to avoid contact in any certain way. But I was going to make sure that I could do what I can do best by just doing everything fundamentally, right? So so Lauri Markkanen, I don't think can play like some of these guys because he has different mindsets. And I think that he's shown, at least from the 3 years of basketball that I've seen, and plus whatever we've seen prior to college as well, and in his overseas days, that he isn't this physical guy. He isn't a guy that is going to embrace contact a ton, and that's going to limit his ceiling.
Then why don't we look at guys who have been that second or third best player on their team, who were power forwards, who could shoot, which basically brings us back from the Kevin Love to the Chris Bosh days. I mean, I know it's a LeBron partner deal, but that is the case. Chris Bosh was someone who was able to stretch the floor out, shoot pretty well.
He wasn't super physical with that Heat team.
Was never super physical.
I would say he was
better
more physical with the
defensively,
Raptors.
He was very good defensively, but the question is like, does he fit more into that mold? And I think yes. I think Lowry fits closer to like a Chris Bosh.
But then to counteract that, Bosh was better athletically. So I think that's why Markkanen is in a weird spot, because he's not as athletic as a Chris Bosh, because Chris Bosh was 6'9", so he's automatically quicker, faster. But
Chris Bosh was 6'11". I'm sorry.
Was he?
Yeah.
Those are back. I mean, we thought fucking Dwight Howard was 7 feet tall.
No,
He's now,
Dwight
like,
was 6'9", and we all knew he wasn't over 6'11".
Chris Bosh is not 6'11".
NBA reference says so.
Chris Bosh played smaller than Lauri Markkanen. I'll at least say that. Chris Bosh had times where he was more of a 4,
Everywhere
where
looks
you
like
could play
6'11".
Markkanen at the 5.
Chris Bosh played the 5 for several years.
But Bosh was like
he was a 4.
Bosh was a 4.
But he could play the 5. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think Lowry's the same exact way. He's a 4 on our team, but he can play the 5.
Bosh is better at putting the ball on the ground, though. Bosh is better with the ball in his hands, creating.
I don't know.
Bosh was gifted with the ball.
I think Lowry year 2 looked decent with the ball in his hands. I don't know. It's hard because it's
you're comparing to an 11-time All-Star, so it's tough.
I know, but I'm trying to put him in a category.
Yeah,
as far as
you're trying to find a ceiling.
guys who are 4-5s who can shoot well from the field, who were able to space the floor out for their teams, and who were also the second or third best player on their team. Like, there's not a lot of guys in that category. I think it's a unique type, like a player type. So when you start looking at the best of that category, it is the Chris Bosh. It is, guys, KG was never in that genre of like when shooting took over the league. But if it was, like, if he was able to, KG could do it all.
Yeah, KG
like, that's the thing, is he's one of the greatest power forwards of all time for a reason.
But we know KG. He's not.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's not going to be a KG.
correct.
Territory. Yeah.
Absolutely. But my thing is, like, those guys who are, like I said, able to do floor spacing while being, 6'10 plus, I think there's pretty elite company for all the names that are coming up, and especially for someone who's putting up the numbers he is in his first 2 years. I would put him he's on that arc of being a 20-plus a game scorer for several years because he's not predicated on his athleticism. He's someone who just has a great shooting touch and who has a great release. He has good physicality, or I should say building physicality into his game. Well, he's still 21, 22, 23. So I think he's got a game that will age well. Like, I don't see anything really holding him back from being someone who's just going to be in a similar vein of like second or third guy on the team, but between 18 and 24 points a game for, like 6 years, no problem. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's a very good player and he just can continue to get better. But when it comes to that type, you're right. There's not a lot of guys who have been there and done that because the game hasn't been around with 7-footer shooting threes this often.
I think
it's a small category.
The point that we're disagreeing on is just the fact that I do think that he can get better. I just think that he is pretty much the player that he is going to be already.
You don't think there's going to be much room for growth?
I don't think this. Like I said, I think
it's not a Pascal Siakam case where we see this guy going from late resurgence in life and then growing big chunks year over year as far as how well you can play.
I think he'll have incremental growth. Okay. And that's the thing that he can be a very more well-tuned and find player. Like, he could tune in and hone in his skills for sure. But I don't know if he can take that next step to becoming elite. I think maybe he'll make an all-star game or something like that. But Chris Bosh was an elite player. I don't know if Markkanen can become an elite player. I think that's his threshold that we can at least say if we're going bare bones, not even comparing him to players. Yeah. I don't know if he'll ever be elite. He's definitely not KG category.
Oh, God, no.
We know that. But, I don't think he's going to be Dirk KG category. But then you can go away from the greats and go to the elite. I don't even know if he'll hit that elite status. Where I think Kevin Love was elite at a time.
But career arc-wise, you have to admit, in his first 2 years, he's done something that very few people have done.
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what do you think is a bum? That's the furthest thing that I'm saying.
So what do you think, if his baseline is so high, what do you think his peak will be? Stat line. I don't know if you want to throw out a stat line or shooting split.
I don't think I'll ever hit up to 24.
Okay.
So, I think that, again, incrementally, I think he can become a 20-point per game player for sure. I think that we saw last year, I don't know if his volume can increase that much. Because if this Bulls team's going to be good, that means more guys are taking shots. And we see the emergence of Otto Porter. We see Zach LaVine. Kobe White's going to need shots. Thomas Satoransky, Thad Young, Wendell Carter Jr. didn't play much last year as well. So if this team's going to grow, I don't think the shots are going to be massively there for Lauri Markkanen. And I don't think it's going to be there mainly because I don't think he's going to be an unstoppable guy that they need to feed the ball to. Possession. I think they'll get it to him when he's open, and they'll obviously call plays for him when he has a great matchup.
Yeah,
but
he's taking about 15 a game last year.
Yeah, I think maybe that gets up to 18. But even then, I don't think that's going to push him to 22 points per game or anything like that. So I'd say his peak for that is 22 points per game. I think rebounding wise, maybe he clips 10.5, and then assist wise, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy important. But if he becomes a 46% shooter. I don't think 40's out of his range, at least from 3. And then I think he could probably hit 90 at least from the line. So I think he could be a 46, 40, 90 player on 22 points per game. And that's very, very good. But the thing that's going to hold him back from becoming that next level, that elite, is his defense. And I don't think that defense is there because of the physicality that is lacking from what I've seen so far.
Mm-hmm. And for me, the thing I think is the disconnect in this conversation is that if, let's say, it's K-Love, let's say it's Chris Bosh, and that's the ceiling, if Lowry doesn't make it exactly to that ceiling, that is not bad. And that doesn't mean that this Bulls team can't be good if he doesn't. I think the thing that I would disagree with you, Sean, is that, Dave brings up the Pascal Siakam, which is a good point, where maybe Lowry didn't have much improvement to get to where he is right now. It's incremental, but I still think there's leaps and bounds that he can do, and I think we will see that over this year, over next year. What part of his game
do you think you're like, wow, he hasn't unlocked that part of him yet? Because I don't think he's that good of a ball handler. So that part's automatically limiting him.
Well, that's one thing. It's things that he needs to work on and fine tune. Ball handling, the making sure that the with the 3-point shot that you're maintaining that, even getting better with that because that's your bread and butter.
But again,
and then also becoming that, like, I think he can become that player where it's like, hey, I can be a little bit more physical here, a little bit more physical there.
I think it's
completely writing it off to where I think that he can work on that and kind of, is he going to be the big bruiser down low? Never. But I think he can work on it to where we're looking at it where it's like, wow, remember 2 years ago when we talked about Lauri Markkanen and how his offensive rebound numbers were low and that he couldn't bang down low, and now he can a little bit more?
Maybe, but I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's averaging over 13 boards per game, is going to be a defensive stalwart. I don't think that's in him. I mean, we just look at Karl-Anthony Towns. We're always like, Karl-Anthony Towns can unlock it because he has the athleticism, he has the size, he has the
incredibly efficient shot.
Yeah, he's got everything to become a great defender. It's just not there, and I don't think it's there with Markkanen either. And that's the thing is, I think that he could be a little bit worse than Karl-Anthony Towns, and because he's less athletic. I think he's less physically gifted as Karl-Anthony Towns, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, you can be a very good player. I think a good comp for him is maybe Brook Lopez. Like, if Brook was doing this his whole entire career, maybe not at the rim. I'm just looking because I looked up guys who were 6'9" or taller that were forward, centers, all that stuff, and that were averaging 16.5 points per game throughout their career. That's what Markkanen right now is doing, and I don't think that's going to dip unless he has he plays for a long time like Vince Carter and just has
if he's there at 42, sure.
Yeah, but I think in his prime, these are the players that he's going to be in, and he's right now at the lowest. And it's the difference between him and second place is about half win shares, but it's Markkanen with 6.1 win shares, and then Kristaps at 12.1, and then there's Joel Embiid, DeMarcus Cousins, Karl-Anthony Towns, Brook Lopez, then Brad Daughtry, Yao Ming, Anthony Davis, Willis Reed, Tom Chambers, Zach Randolph, Chris Webbers, Dave Cowens, Bob McAdoo, Alonzo Mourning, Amari Stoudemire, Chris Bosh, Marcus Aldridge, Artis Gilmore, Mikan, Larry Nance, Kevin McHale, Bob Lanier, Alvin Hayes, Patrick Ewing, Dwight Howard, Walt Bellamy, Bob Pettit, Paul Gasol, Hakeem Olajuwon, Moses Malone, David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, KG, Tim Duncan, Wilt, and Kareem. Like, all those guys, there's definitely, those are Hall of Famers right there. He's in great categories. He's in a great section, without a doubt. But let's look at all of those players, and it's just like there's clearly just a complete difference when you look at all those players compared to Lauri Markkanen, and that's the athleticism. That's the holy shit factor of their games, and I don't think he has that in him, and that's why I think that he's in a very good spot right now in his career. But that's why I don't think he's going to be able to take that next jump. And that's why I looked at Brook Lopez, because Brook Lopez kind of doesn't have that holy shit part to his game. But Brook Lopez is a very good player. He renowned his game. He fine-tuned his game. He's a very good, well-rounded player. And I don't know what Brook did coming into the game as a rim protector, and that's where Markkanen lacks the most, I would say. Yeah, and Brook came in blocking 2 shots a game. So I don't think that's a great comp for him, at least defensively. But
he's also the worst rebounding center in NBA history.
Yeah, so and he doesn't like physicality a ton either. So it's tough to find him because he's a very unique player, but I don't know if he's unique enough to be that elite level.
Final thoughts on this before we wrap up shop.
I think you guys are thinking that I'm saying he's shit. He's very good.
A little bit. It's kind of got that connotation. I think that's the connotation you got to throw away because that's not what you're meaning.
Brook peaked at 28 with a stat line that Lowry can do this year without blinking an eye is my thing. You're saying his top end is something that's attainable this year.
But the thing is, I'm saying if Brook was I'm saying Brook last year, because and obviously Brook,
that was his peak though. That's what I'm saying. Brook's peak was being a 20-point game scorer.
I'm saying he's Brook Lopez in the fact that he's not that next level athlete, that he is 7 feet tall. Brook obviously showed that he can be a great 3-point shooter. I'm not saying that he's going to be Brook Lopez taking 10 shots a game. I'm saying a higher volume Brook Lopez where he isn't this athletic freak like a Karl-Anthony Towns, like a Shaquille O'Neal, like an Anthony Davis or anything like that. But he's a very well-rounded, he's a smart player. He's fine-tuned his game to fit what the NBA needs. I think he could be that type of player where he has a long career because he is very smart. He is very skilled. I just don't know if he's next level skilled. And I'm just saying next level as an elite or Hall of Famer. So I'm not saying that he's a bad player. He could be a top 2-3 player on an NBA championship team.
He doesn't need to be a Hall of Famer.
That's a very good thing. Huh?
He doesn't need to be a Hall of
I'm
Famer.
not saying he does.
No,
but
I'm
I'm
not
trying to
saying
find
you
his
do.
ceiling.
I'm not
so
saying.
I'm saying that his ceiling can't be a Hall of Famer. Sorry.
Sean, I'm not saying you do. I'm just clarifying
Yeah,
it for
but-
in case there's someone out there that needed to hear that.
You're saying you're hurt over me being mean to Laurie Markkinen by saying he's not going to be
You're
a
being
Hall
mean
of
to my
Famer.
boy.
Like,
Brooke
come
Lopez
on.
could be a Hall of Famer.
No.
Splash Mountain.
He's got years in him.
But like, yeah, I think that Markkinen isn't going to be elite. It's all. Like, I don't know what Brad Daughtry did. He's not going to be Brad Daughtry, I guess. I don't know.
That.
Oh, Brad Daughtry was, because that was one of the names on the list. I was like,
okay.
Because Brad Daughtry's now, I know him as an analyst. 7-footer, played for Cleveland, averaged 19 points throughout his career, 9.5 boards, less than a block as a 7-foot big man. I mean, that sounds like Markkinen. He wasn't shooting like Markkinen from the outside.
Yeah.
Markkinen was a better shooter. I mean, Brad Daughtry wasn't taking a ton of threes, but Brad Daughtry was around a 75% shooter from the line. So like, maybe that's it. I mean, you're looking at Brad Miller right now.
I was going to fuck with you. I was going to fuck with
Are
you.
you kidding me? So you're saying that I'm capping Laurie Markkinen and you're like, he's Brad Miller.
No, we're
that's
not.
That's like
Jesus.
I
that's
literally-
the floor. The floor is Brad Miller.
He's already better than Brad Miller ever
Yes.
was. The whole thing was I was gonna do a fuck with you when you were looking at Chris Daughtry. You're like, yeah, basically let's
Chris
just call the man. Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's just call the man Brad, like souped up Brad Miller. Like, is that what you want to hear? Jesus, Sean.
Brad Daughtry finished his career with 114 offensive rating and 105 defensive rating. It's
pretty
if you
good.
didn't want that for Laurie Markkinen, I don't know what you want.
Pretty good.
Because I was looking up, like, okay, who were some of the best big men shooting? And on every list,
laughed
Brad
that.
Miller is there.
I know, right?
And I'm like, was he really that good?
He took
Like,
a 3 a game.
I just remember him just being the white guy on the team for when the Bulls and the
That guy
He
loved
only played what?
physicality.
2008,
you
2009,
you
09,
googled Brad Miller,
10?
and he's not even the first Brad Miller to come up.
No, he's not. Oh man!
First
But,
guy's the guy that doesn't wear batting gloves on the Phillies.
Ooh, that's kind of
and that's how we end it with Brad Miller. Thank you guys for listening and watching.
No, hold
Super
on, wait,
fans.
wait. Why do you think I was being mean to Laurie Markkinen? You didn't answer that. You're like,
Me?
oh, I think you're being
No,
mean to him.
I think
because
it's
because you're writing things off.
Yeah, I was
You don't write things off from a 21-year-old,
22.
22-year-old.
So what? You want me to baby Laurie Markkinen and be like,
No,
oh,
no,
I
but
think
he's
gonna
got
be
like
KG.
he's still
I'm
gonna
saying-
Oh, I
like.
think he's gonna be a Hall of Famer.
It sounded.
I think he's gonna get his
It
jersey
sounded
retired
like
at
you were
United
saying like,
Singer.
well, he doesn't have this, he's never going to get it. Where I'm looking at it, he's 22. Like, I think that
You know
there's
what?
some
The man's
growth
got
that
10
can
years
be
in his
there.
career.
Yeah.
Easy.
Let me change it. Laurie Markkinen's going to be the 52nd president of the United States of America. I
That
don't
would be
care.
impressive because he wasn't born in our country.
That's the
In thi-
joke, Dave.
in
But
this
I'm not
day
going to
and
limit him. I'm not going to limit him because he's only 21 years old.
In this
Fucking
day,
snowflakes
in this
over
day
here.
and age, like
You were the
I
snowflake.
don't question anything.
You're limiting his ceiling. All right, then I won't. Then he's going to become a president as a non-United States citizen. Or a non-United
in this day and
States,
age,
born
Donald Trump can
player.
change whatever he wants. He can open the door for Laurie Markkinen.
God.
Yikes.
Like I don't question
Thanks for
anything that
opening up that.
happens in
Thank you,
this
Sean.
world
He went
anymore.
there. Blame
You
him.
opened it up. You opened it up.
You guys are the ones like, oh, you're limiting his ceiling. All right, so I just didn't. I
Because
said-
he's freaking 21 and putting up 18 points
So
a night,
what's the
9
ceiling?
boards.
What's
We
the
just
top
talked for
ceiling?
35 minutes about it. I'm not going back
40
on this.
plus.
Jesus
But
Christ.
what do you think the ceiling
I am
is?
sweating. This is over. Great segment, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Make sure to check us out on
damn.
twitch.tv/MostValPodcast, patreon.com/MostValPodcast, Podcast, and on Twitter at Ricky Widmer, at Dave_don't_tweet at. I didn't memorize
Don't-
it
I don't
already.
care.
And then at Most Valuable Pod, at Schwarbo. I'm just going to at Schwarbo, at Most Valuable Pod. Thank you guys. We will talk to you guys later. Stay super fans.